Mm,
Connecting to cloud server. All right, and
yeah.
we're on. Good morning. How are you, Jonas?
Good morning. I'm very, very well. It's are you based in London, Claire?
No, I'm not. I am up in Bradford,
Oh yeah, that's
north.
what I remember you
Yeah.
saying. Yeah, it's what's the weather like there? Is it as horrible as it is down here?
No, the sun is shining this morning, which is amazing. I don't know how long that's going to last for. We are going camping this weekend also, which is not ideal. I think it's going to rain pretty much the entire weekend. And of course, England is playing. So apparently a TV is being taken to the campsite to plug in. I don't know how that's going to work, but look, we'll see how it
Will
goes.
you? Yeah, yeah. I mean, it might be a case of maybe you wish you hadn't watched that game. I really hope England can kind of put on a performance. I think it's been a bit of a strange tournament. I think one
Yeah.
of the worst we've
Yeah.
had since.
It's really surprising to me because everybody seems really disappointed, but they're winning. So I don't really get it. But it's because I don't understand anything about the games. So
Yeah, well, it's been like
I'm like,
what nearly 60 years since England's won a sort of a major trophy. So
wow.
there's kind of a pit like we go through these periods that we have really fantastic teams and a great squad of
Yeah.
players. This best squad of players that compared to some of the other countries. So there's a bit of an expectation coming in. And I think yeah, it's been a hard sort of realization that perhaps England might not win this tournament, and everyone was coming into it thinking we would. But you never know.
Right.
Some teams start, slow, and then they pick up at the end and they win it. But just hope they can just give a performance and give people something to be proud of.
Well, fingers crossed because it'll improve my camping experience no end if there's some 6 days.
Absolutely.
Um, so just for everybody just joining, we haven't kicked anything off yet. We are just having a bit of chit chat while we wait for some more people to join. So I'll probably just give a couple of minutes just to give people the opportunity to jump on, and then we'll kick into it. But yeah, obviously I've just told you about my weekend. Jonas, do you have anything exciting planned for yours?
This weekend, actually, oh yeah, no, I have a friend coming over for dinner, and I
Excellent.
haven't seen this friend for a while. Funny enough, she used to actually work with me, in a previous company. So,
Which is why we
yeah,
have you on this webinar, right? So
exactly. So, how to get your teams to and people in your teams to perform better by bribing them, by inviting them to your house for dinner and pumping them with loads of
100%.
wine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's we've already covered one of the points I was going to discuss later. But I know,
Food,
no, it's
food and
just
wine
yeah,
and bribery.
exactly, yeah. But no, it's going to be a relaxed one with the family, the kids, which is quite nice. You don't get to have many weekends full weekends sometimes during this sort of busy period of event or festival season. So I'm going to grab it with both hands and do as little as possible, I think, this weekend. So that's my
Oh,
plan.
that's my plan every weekend, but unfortunately, two kids doesn't normally go that way. But anyway,
You-
all right. So, what are we thinking? Are we feeling like we're at a time that we should kick off? What do you reckon, Eunice? Should we give it a go?
yeah. I mean, if you're happy, I'm happy to go.
I think so. We've got a few people joined on, so maybe we'll get started. So first of all, I probably should introduce myself. Some of you may have already read the bio, but I'll give you a quick run through. So my name is Claire Flynn. I am a people and culture business partner for Employment Hero in the UK. No doubt that probably confuses some with my accent. I'm most certainly not originally from around these parts, but have made the move with my family from the Australian business over to the UK business, and up to the north of England. Obviously, we came for the weather because what better place to spend your summers than up in the north of England rather than in Australia. But look, hey, like I said, the sun is shining today, so I'm pretty happy, as you can tell. All jokes aside, though, I am super excited to be spending some time with you all this morning, and obviously with the legendary, CSO extraordinaire Yonas Blay. So welcome, Jonas, and thank you for being with us today. Hopefully, it'll be a really good session, and people can take away some really good things from it.
Brilliant.
As you all know, oh, sorry, go.
I was just gonna say that legendary, is that another way of saying old? I'm just curious. No, I'm just joking.
Maybe. You know what's funny? I actually changed up in my mind this morning what I was going to say. I was going to say the man, the myth, the legend, which
Oh,
would have been probably, I know, which maybe, look, if we could do a rewind, maybe that's what I should have done. But I was actually thinking I'm going to end up getting tongue-tied trying to say that, and I don't know what the
yeah,
hell's going
yeah.
to come out at the other end.
Good pivot. Good choice. So go ahead.
Thanks. So before we kick off into anything, I'll do just like a little bit of housekeeping. As you know, you guys are all, joined today to have some time with Jonas for him to share some, hopefully some amazing insights, stories, and some methods that, people can use in their experiences while they're building their teams within, building new businesses and things like that. And especially for those people who may not have, let's say, like the big HR team behind them that's kind of helping to create that, and you sort of doing it with a smaller team of people. So this is an interactive session, so you can submit questions via the Q&A box that you've got on your screen. We have put some time aside at the end to get through as many of those questions as we can. If we do happen to run a bit over time and we can't cover everything, don't stress. We will work on a bit of a document afterwards that we can shoot out to everybody that will hopefully, cover the bits that we haven't been able to talk through. This session is also recorded as well, so you'll get a recording of this at the end, as well as some resources. So you don't need to be ferociously taking notes or anything like that. I mean, unless you want to, you're absolutely welcome to, but we will provide obviously a recording of this for you at the end that you can refer back to. So I think that's probably all of my housekeeping bits and pieces. No doubt I've forgotten something, but that's fine. We will pick that back up when we need to. I'll get back to the man of the hour. So Jonas, I had an opportunity actually a couple of times this week. Firstly, we had some time together earlier in the week, and then we've had a few side chats on LinkedIn, which have been
Yeah.
amazing. Learn a bit about each other, from a work sense, and also from, favorite superhero, superpower, all sorts
Yeah.
of stuff. Yeah. Fear of heights, which I think we both share. Maybe a
Oh,
slight fear of
that was
flying.
confidential. Can't believe you put that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I do have a fear of heights. We do have that in common.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Shared tips on how to get through flights and all sorts of things. So, I feel like we're getting to know each other a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've absolutely loved, especially earlier in the week, sort of hearing your stories, hearing about how you started out. It's probably not the normal pathway to where you've got to from, I guess, that early pre-career.
Yeah.
I don't know how. Yeah, like, your foray into the music industry and all sorts of things. So I loved hearing about that and kind of how you've made your way through and your journey in your career. As much as I would love to, I certainly can't do justice to your stories, to your, small coffee mug, or your, great love of, the legendary band Kiss. So what I thought was I'll hand over to you to kind of take us through a bit about yourself, your journey, anything you want to share with everybody. Take it away before we launch into some content.
Well, brilliant. Thank you, Claire, for the really lovely introduction.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're
so
very welcome.
my name's Jonas. I work for a company called Boxbar Tech. What we do at Boxbar is we've created the world's first fully full menu automated self-serve drinks machine. Where these drinks, you can find them in at some of your probably most well-known venues, such as the O2 in London, the Hydro in Scotland, Celtic Park, London Stadium of West Ham, as well as some of the UK's most well-known music festivals, such as Download Festival, Parklife. So at some point, if you're into events, large-scale events in particular, music festivals, you probably will come across our machines, and so that's something I've been involved in quite recently. But in terms of my general background, I've always been involved in terms of my professional career in the sort of sales, business development, commercial space. I think I naturally fell into that because I've always been involved in music, started playing piano when I was 8, loved doing the performance aspect of it, and ended up studying that, and then was in a band. And then at some point, you've got to make a decision if your band isn't, successful, isn't earning you the money that you need to kick on with in life. And I decided to pack that all in, and find a career that I can actually, sort of build, start doing things, earning money, be able to get a house, those kind of things. So I fell into sales, and I think the reason why was because there's an element of performance to it. Presenting, getting over your product with your prospect, very similar to, getting your lyrics or your music over with the audience. So, and that wasn't really planned or anything. It naturally fell into that, and I think I enjoy the sales world, the commercial world as a result of that. So not kind of, I guess, maybe yeah, everyone's got obviously got a different path and a different journey, but I sometimes think about, like, why sales? I could have done many different things, and I think that's the reason, that's the connection. And I've always, the first company I joined was Haymarket, which is Haymarket Publishing. I think it's still one of the biggest independent publishers in the UK. Great, fantastic training for postgraduates and young people. And that's probably one of the biggest companies I've ever worked in. Since then, I've pretty much worked for small to medium organizations, certainly startups, mostly in the last 15 or so years. And loved every minute of it. I love being part of a team where you can actively feel, and see, your contribution, and not feel sort of like a cog in the wheel in a much bigger organization. And so, in this conversation, I think it's lovely to be invited to speak. And if there's anything I want anyone to take away from this, is it's just, this is my own experience that I'll be sharing. If there's one or two things that, you can take away and be like, oh, that could be quite interesting and useful for whatever I do, that'd be fantastic. But it's my experience. I will never dictate that this should be the way you should do things. Absolutely not. So just happy to be here and happy to be having the conversation with you, Claire.
Yeah, no, we're super happy to have you here, to be honest. And yeah, I like something I have to know, and I know that this is not in any way related probably to what we're talking about today, was what was the name of the band?
Oh, this is like, I don't know how, like, okay. So every time people I ever tell this, like I was in a band, which I do not to tell people this often at all. They always want to know, what was the name of the band, and I never tell them, just in case they do find something. And I think I might have a few people that might have joined this call that may have asked me that. So I tell you what, I will tell you after
Sure.
this call. Yeah,
Oh,
because
we'll
I
share it in the post-webinar docs for anybody that's interested. Trawling through YouTube to try and find old videos of Jonas playing.
Yeah, and yeah, I was a different person back then, so I'll tell you in private.
I'm expecting glam rock. I mean, that's what I'm
Yeah,
expecting. I'll be
uh,
disappointed if it's anything less, if I'm being honest. So fingers
you won't
crossed.
be disappointed. You won't be disappointed. Let's say that.
Oh, okay. No, thank you so much. That was awesome, and like a really good starting point for us to get started. Like I did say though as well, I just will reiterate, we are recording, so don't feel like you guys need to be ferociously taking notes. We'll get all this out to you. So what we had sort of planned for everybody today is really just to focus on a few key topics that we, I guess, saw as being pretty crucial to anyone who's growing their business and hiring new talent, especially in the market that we're in today. So probably and I just remembered that I am controlling the slides today, so apologies for that slide delay there. There we go. This is us, and here we go. So first topic we thought we'd really look at covering is probably something that's really important. It goes without saying that getting the right people on board is so crucial. And, I guess being able to look for particular traits in people that will help you when you're first hiring them is probably really important. So, Jonas, you've built up, I guess, multiple successful teams in startups and scaling businesses. So it'd be great if you could talk us through, I guess, like what you look for, like what key traits you look for in those first hires, and maybe
Hmm.
even sharing some tips and some insights if you have them around how you might be able to identify those traits that you're looking for while you're in those early kind of recruitment, and interview phases.
Yeah. So I think for me, I've always felt it's really important to work in a company and with people that for the most part you do get along with. I've always, you spend, what, 8, 9, maybe more hours. I'm really hoping not more than 10 hours a day at work with people. And certainly back in the day when you're in the office, these are people you see constantly all the time, maybe more time with them than you do with your family. So it was really important for me when when I started to be in a position where I could actually, control that to a certain degree, be able to recruit people that, I really, not only were they able, they need to do the job, they have the right credentials, and they are, essentially on paper and obviously in person what you're looking for. But also like, how does their personality fit with yours and with the rest of the team? Yeah, particularly if you're a small company. I could give an example of one of the organizations, Fest Ticket, where at the very beginning when we were hiring the first people, like we were all in one room, and that's like one room that could fit a maximum of 10.
Mm.
And yeah, I feel that you're going to be that close. You're rubbing shoulders. Like you can't choose your family, but you can certainly choose the people you work with. I thought, yeah, if we can try and get that part right, I think no matter what happens and the challenges that we face, at least we feel like happy about facing those challenges together as a small team. So I think like compatibility the existing team's personalities was quite an important part for us, and still is when hiring people. I think the second thing is that when you are looking to make your first hires, most often like, as a business, unless you've had wonderful seed like seed investment or had an injection of cash, you are sort of limited in terms of your budget salary. So you are looking
Mm.
for quite committed people, but you don't have the advantages of having been able to pay them loads and loads of money. So you do have to look for those traits where those people are determined, that maybe have something to prove themselves, are looking to take the next step in their own career, but at the same time are within your budget. So I think like, do these people have any kind of shared compassion or passion, sorry, for what you're trying to achieve? Do you could you're a CEO, you're a leader of a business. It's going to be difficult to find people that will ever care for your business as much as certainly you do, but
Mm.
you certainly can find people close to that. And I found at the very, very early stages, young, determined, dynamic individuals that were wanting a career and looking to pursue a career in this specific area of field, in my case, sales, but just needed someone to be able to give them the opportunity. And so yeah, we first certainly for recruitments, we were looking for those really determined, hungry young individuals that absolutely wanted a career in sales, not a career
Yeah.
in music, but a career in sales, and were looking out for somebody to take that next step. And so that was yeah, and that was really important for us because at that stage everyone needs to pull together very much so. I remember back then, sort of like you're doing sales, but you're also doing customer service. It's like it's
Yeah.
everyone's sort of like just trying to make it work, and so you do need to find people that are not only able to do that, but actually kind of like enjoy the idea of being in the hustle and bustle of a small business. So those two things I think are the absolute most important things. Making sure that whilst you don't have to be best friends, there's a set element of likability there, but also they share a similar level of determination and willingness to sort of do whatever it can do to get it done as you do. So yeah, those were the two things I think that were most important at those early stages.
Yeah, I can 100% understand that. And it is one of those things, isn't it? Like when businesses are small and you are just in that one room and it's kind of like you become a jack of all trades almost. Like one minute you're a salesperson, the next minute you're the receptionist, the next minute you're organizing the Christmas party or whatever. It's almost like you need those people that just really want it. There's I don't
Yeah,
know if you no doubt you probably agree with this with me, but sometimes like sort of skill and experience sort of only gets you so far before that kind of your personality, your drive, your interests, your passions really kick in, and that's where you kind of find those amazing people. Sometimes it might not be the most experienced or the one with the most certificates or whatever in the room. It might be the one who's just got the most passion for it. Yeah, I
100%.
think you and I kind of share that view. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say actually it can be actually counterproductive to actually hire somebody with at that moment in time that is huge levels of experience because they might not be or might have forgotten what it's like to be at that early stages of their own career and sometimes I won't say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but there is a sense of like maybe being set or a certain expectation when you're towards sort of a more mature end of your career. So we found that sort of younger, more hungry, sort of and very coachable individuals at that stage was perfect for us. And you know, a lot of them at that time point they took the opportunity and they grew themselves in terms of their skill sets and their experience with the business. So there's almost like a
Mhm.
mutually beneficial thing going on there.
Yeah.
So yeah, really that was that worked well for us.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. No, that was great. Um, Kicking off, I guess, looking at our what we sort of thought was pretty important as a next step to talk about was, you know, the obstacles that you can face with recruitment and retention of your team. You know, the employment market out there today is absolutely no joke. It is super competitive. You've got smaller businesses that are trying to compete with larger businesses with big budgets and things like that, and it's not easy to get people in. It's not easy to keep people either. I thought it would be great if, you know, from your experience of you know, doing this for a long time and building these teams, sort of sharing with us, if you can, some challenges that you have had, I guess, finding those people to bring on board, and how you've managed to get them on board as well, into the teams that you're
Mm.
building.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, the modern day sort of like recruitment, but like it's tough out there. It really is. And I think, you know, certainly from my experience in terms of the obstacles of getting people in, particularly if you are a small, maybe medium startup
Mm.
company, the big challenge is obviously salary, probably more so
Yeah,
now
goes
than
without
ever
saying, right?
before.
It's the big one.
Yeah, cost of living's gone up. Everyone's expect, you know, everyone needs really to be paid, you know, a certain amount, and as a small business, that can be really challenging in terms of trying to get the right people. Right, this person's perfect profile, everything, but it's just a bit out of our, you know, salary budget. That's a challenge, and we more so now than ever before. But even sort of looking back at some of the companies, like the way what we did is that we you have to have an element of patience, I think. And also a plan ahead in terms of what are these, almost like buying a house, like what are the areas that, you know, we can perhaps bend and be flexible on in order to fulfill this role. I do think it's important to have that plan and to sort of stick with it. And believe in the work that you put together to put that plan, that job spec, and I think eventually you will be able to find the right person that does tick those boxes, particularly the salary box. So you don't stretch yourself too far at those early stages of a business. So that, you know, obviously, yeah, the compensation packages was really difficult in terms of meeting the expectations of the job spec at that early stage. Um, how do we I guess how do we overcome that is again, I think it feeds into what I was saying earlier about looking for people that have, I guess, that are looking for something. Like salary is important, you need to live and you need to eat, that's for sure. But there are also a lot of individuals out there that are just they're looking for the opportunity. um and the advantages of them joining the team is more about how can this help and further my career? And I think a lot of the time companies don't actually lean into that. I think it's about
Yeah.
this is the job this we can do, but it's also about actually, do you know what? If you do come here, you know, versus a much larger company that can pay you more, you'll probably be able to be dealing with a lot more higher level things than you probably would be allowed to deal with in there, and you'll
Mhm.
be able to.
Yeah.
That gives you a certain level of experience after a year or so that you probably wouldn't gain there. So it's more of a kind of like think about in the bigger picture and helping people to and conveying that. And then most importantly, if they do get the role, sticking with that. And I think for me, I've always thought when recruiting people, it's like, okay, they have this interest, we need them to do this, they need to get paid for that. But what else are they interested in? What do
Mhm.
they, you know, that typical question of where do you want to be in 5 years? But more about like, you know, what would you see yourself as a successful next few years? What do you want to do? And how can we as a business get you there? Whether that's with
Yeah.
us as a company or somewhere else. And a lot of the time I found in some of the people that we brought in that were hugely successful with us and now, whether it be in other companies or not, is that they gained a lot from the experience.
Mm.
And in hindsight, the risk in terms of like coming on board with and maybe something, I wouldn't say they had to compromise on salary, but maybe could have got something a little bit better more elsewhere. The long-term gain from that has been beneficial. And I think a lot of them, if you speak to them, would look back and be like, actually, yeah, I think he's right. Like, the job I have now, and I can be honest with you, some of them have, I'm incredibly proud with some of the people that we've worked with, that in which they've joined the companies I've been at, maybe zero experience, maybe one previous job, and are now CEOs of their own business. No, no lie,
Yeah.
directors. I'm incredibly proud, and I think that if I think there's a risk element to it, maybe that they might have felt back then, but it's paid off. And I think companies should lean into that, particularly if you're a small business with limited resource, really lean into that. But most importantly, honor that when they do join, and be proactively contribute to that individual's development in their professional career.
Yeah, like I felt that 100%, to be honest, what you just said there. Like, I mean, from me personally, like I started my HR career off in a small business, and at the time I had people around me that were going into much sort of bigger companies and things like that. What they found was they very much got siloed, whereas I had my
Yeah,
hands on everything, and the benefit that that has given me in my career, just to, I guess, have that and have that oversight onto every part of it, like the good, the bad, the amazing. But
yeah,
it's such a benefit. And like that is such a unique offering that small to medium-sized businesses can give that those larger
yeah,
businesses can't. So leaning
yeah,
into that is such a cool thing. I was obviously going to naturally then move us probably towards looking at the other side of, I guess, that recruitment process then, which I think you've just touched on anyway. We could maybe expand on it a bit more, but
mm,
once you've got those teams through the door and you've got your people in there and you've got this amazing team, like we've got to keep them there, right? So obviously,
mm,
the point that you touched on there about really fostering, what people want and, helping them get to where they want to get to is like a really amazing way of obviously retaining employees. You're not going to retain them forever because they're going to want to
yeah.
spread their wings and go somewhere else. But is there anything else, I guess, when you've had your teams in place and things like that, is there things that or insights that you could probably share around how to identify maybe when people are starting to get one foot out the door when you're not quite ready for them to do it yet? So I think what's the term that's been coined these days? Is it quietly quitting? I think we call it these
Yeah,
days.
quietly, secretly,
Like how you kind of
undercover quitting.
undercover
Uh,
quitting, is that it? I think, yeah, I've heard it called a couple of things, but like
yeah,
how, I guess, and you've no doubt experienced this, like, are there telltale signs that someone is, sort of starting to slip their foot out the door? And is there anything, I don't know if you're a believer of, if someone wants to leave, just let them go, or should you try and fight to kind of keep those people? Like, have you got any, I guess views on that, or any insights or tips you
yeah,
can share around how to recognize that and what to do if someone's starting to slip out?
yeah. That's just really. I think it's a really good topic here. Like, I've always like I've never really been hard on anyone that's lost a deal, or something hasn't quite worked out in terms of like getting a partnership in place or things like that. As long as the big thing for me has always been sort of like let's try our best to not be surprised by anything. And I've felt that more with working with people. You mentioned the sort of like, are there any signs? I think that's not, I actually don't know if that's the right way to look at it. I think the best thing
Mhm.
is to be surprised, and to, by having constant, like good levels of communication, trust both ways, and being, as a manager, I think all managers it should be a supportive role, a coaching role, certainly, and being very open and transparent as a manager, but then also, expecting that also back from the team, which is also, part of that is also earned. Obviously, trust is earned. It should be a case that you shouldn't have to look for the signs, but you already know. And
Mhm.
I always try to cultivate an atmosphere and an environment where people would actively come to me and say, look, like, and you will know, because you should know I think I try, particularly if you're a small business, I feel you should really know the people you work with. And part of the interview process, knowing their goals, ambitions, where they want to get to, you should already have that sense that you're coming to that point. And with every single person I've worked with, it's never been a surprise. It's, if
Mhm.
anything, I've advised them on what they should do. Um,
Yeah.
when you, even if your business is super successful and you're growing and everything's working out well, you're still going to only have a limited budget when it comes to salary, and you're still going to have limited roles available as you continue. People will leave, and the question is when they do, and if you can't, if it's not, if it doesn't make sense for them to stay in the business, whether there's not the right role, someone's already got that, or just you just can't afford to pay them more, perhaps, or what they're looking for,
Yeah.
because they've outgrown. That's firstly, that's a remarkable thing. It means that you actually succeeded in terms of the recruitment. You were right in terms of selecting this person to come in, because they are now, they're so good. They're looking for their next, steps. And so I've tried to make sure that to create an environment where they could actively come to me and say, hey, um, uh, this is, I'm looking at this and da da da, and advise them. And I think if that person leaves with that and with that sort of mutual sort of understanding and transparency, I think it's an incredibly good thing. You're not surprised, so then you are prepared and ready to fill that role. And they leave with a sense of a feeling that actually, the people I worked with and the company I represented really helped me in my development to get me to this stage. And the world is smaller than we realize, and the amount of times like things come back around. I've worked with people in businesses where that's happened, and then it's come back around, and we've worked, and then we've hired them again on a bigger role. That's happened
Yeah.
several times, in fact. And you never know. Like I said, I mentioned one of the people that used to work with me is my second person I recruited at First Ticket. He's now CEO of a very successful business. I could be working for him, at some point in the future. You just never know. So,
Which would be
you know,
amazing, right?
exactly, 100%. And the fact that he's, when he was leaving and was about to leave the business, we had a really good conversation about it. And I recommended, actually, I think you should take this next step. As much
Mm.
as it hurts me and I don't want to lose you, but that's good for you. Um, and so that's that, yeah, that's my sort of, I guess, my take on it. Everyone's different,
Yeah.
but my take is try to avoid being surprised and to be even looking for the signs, like get to know the people as individuals, what, to the point that it's a conversation that you have, and you do ultimately, like, you have that level of trust where it's not a surprise, you can plan for it, and everyone's benefited from that arrangement throughout the employment, and obviously that person goes on leaving in the future. Does that make sense? I feel like I babbled towards the
Yeah.
end, but
I
do,
don't
do
know,
you,
100%.
that's what I was trying to
100%.
say, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
no, 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 absolutely. No, we got there. No, I love that. And small cup. Sorry, we didn't even address this small cup prop. I did mention it in your intro. I don't know if you want to
Yeah.
explain this to people.
Well, it's actually my lucky cup. I've like, and I don't know if anyone's superstitious, but I always seem to like do well in meetings, more or less. Well, I'll leave it for the people in the participants to judge at the end. But this is my lucky small cup. It's not great in terms of like constantly having to fill it up, so that's not great. It's fantastic, but more or less in meetings and things like this, like it seems to work out well with the cup. So I always keep it with me.
I, on the flip side, have gone for a pint glass of water, which is the polar opposite.
Is the glass half
The
full?
best. I should have like well, it's all right still, but I should have like a nice, like crystal glass or something. But no, 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 I've got a Carling extra cold pint glass next to me. So yeah.
Yeah, dispensed by one of our machines, no doubt. That's a
Well,
little bit of
yeah.
a bug. I won't do that again.
Just give it a punt. That's fine.
Yeah.
All right. I'll jump us across to something, obviously really
Hmm.
important, which is becoming a great place to work without extensive perks. I mean, it's a challenge for any small business to do. Everybody wants and sets out to create, amazing places to work and brilliant places to work. It doesn't always happen overnight, especially when you are competing with these larger companies that have, these extensive perks packages and all sorts of things that can be very enticing. You've been around the block and seen some things, I imagine. In your
Hmm.
experience, sort of, what do you see as like what makes a company great like a great place to work. And you know, I guess in absence of having those big kind of corporate budgets behind your business, like how can you, like what sort of things can you do to make your workplace be this, you know, great place to work?
Hmm. You know, the perks thing is quite, I was thinking about this actually, as you were just talking,
I mean, you
like,
get perks in your industry, so it's probably
yeah,
different.
you know what? Like I'll touch upon that in a bit. Actually, the perks thing has always been something. I'm a little bit old school, and I feel that like there's been a pressure on businesses to provide extensive perks and sometimes quite extravagant ones. I've seen like because of like the rise in the last 20 years of sort of the Silicon Valley tech startups in which Google have swings and slides, and you can get all sorts of
Free
free.
lunches and all sorts. Dry
Yeah,
cleaning.
exactly. Like it's really like there's I've seen during that time the sort of the pressure on businesses to kind of provide those extra things and like I said earlier, like the advantage we were talking like the advantages of a small business in particular small medium size is that there are really sort of significant experience-based advantages that you just don't also get from from those big things. And I'll be honest, I've never really done interviews and spoken to people where the perks are the game changer, and even on a like a retention level, it's that I've always felt that like the people that I've certainly worked with, and that could be also like part of what we've selected and brought into the teams specifically, but like those are sort of like nice to haves. I know maybe some people are thinking, oh, it's easy to say if you're working in an industry where you can get free tickets and stuff like that. But we did proactively look for people and in our interview processes in any industry I've been in music certainly, in which that wasn't part of why the reason why they joined the company. They wanted to join the company because it's sales is their passion, not necessarily
Mhm.
music. I'll be honest with you, like there's a many people might feel like it's like if you work with something all the time, it becomes less of a thing. So like
Yeah, of
oh
course.
really another music event, it's like oh so it becomes less of that. And so that doesn't it's not necessarily a perk. I would say like the things that we and I've focused on is around the personal achievement or achievement within that individual. I think it goes a long way, and I think we can all say that like if you feel that you're doing a good job and that's recognized, and you've
Mm.
grown as a level of achievement in what you've done, I think that goes a long way in you being very satisfied and content and happy with what you've done, and being knowing that others appreciate that. So we've always but also at the same time there's always sometimes you can feel that you're not doing a good job because it's not quite clear from your mouth, the communication is not quite there, and that can be quite an uncomfortable feeling. And so having that relationship with your business with an employee has with the company where they understand where how they're performing, and they're given opportunities that allow them to grow, and it's recognized when they actually do contribute in a way that is maybe above and beyond in some cases. That being communicated to them, and I think is the biggest thing that a company can do, and I actually put that in the bracket as a perk because not many businesses do that. There's lots of people I do speak with that in a sense of limbo. Am I doing a good job? Am I not doing a good job? Or I don't quite feel appreciated. Yeah, these are the common things that I'm sure a lot of people involved in, say, HR, they do maybe hear. And so if a company can get that right, I think that's a perk in itself. And then, things like having free gym memberships and stuff like that, that's just like, I think that's really nice to have, more than
Yeah.
anything. And of course, you have to ultimately be competitive in the space. So you do have to look at that. But I wouldn't say break the bank. Do what's
Mhm.
within your or what's within your capability to be able to do, and focus on the individual themselves and the value that they can gain from working in your business, and going back to what I was saying earlier, and continuing to grow as a professional.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Like around that recognition piece, it's such a big thing that doesn't it costs nothing, right? So as far as kind of creating that really nice place for
Mm.
people to work, and it's something that can be really easily forgotten. I think especially when you're in the throes of it, and everything's busy and chaotic and hectic, and you're kind of just going through your day to day, like it can be something that is very easily forgotten to kind of give people a bit of a pat on the back or a bit of a reminder that they are doing a good job, because, you know, it's nice to hear.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to hear it from time to time. And I guess if you can create that kind of culture from the start where that's just normal, so it doesn't feel like it's, oh shit, like we've got to go back and do this or do that or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it's just naturally creates a really nice environment for people. It
Yeah.
probably does actually lead us quite well into our next topic, which was sort of creative ways to incentivize and motivate your teams. You probably just touched on it a little bit there anyway, but we can probably go into it a little bit more. So I guess, you know, obviously it's you need to do this. You need to be able
Mm.
to, you know, motivate your teams. It's the way that your business becomes successful. We all know that obviously, you know, the big monetary incentives are amazing, and being able to throw those in people's ways is always going to create like a level of motivation and stuff. So I guess like outside of, I guess, the recognitions piece and being able to kind of provide that big monetary incentive to someone, is there any other things that you can think of, like more creative ways that you have used or that you've adopted in your times to be able to kind of motivate and incentivize your
Mm.
teams to succeed?
Yeah, this is one of the areas I think that I continue myself to sort of try and understand and improve on, because I don't think that there's a one shoe sort of fits all kind of situation here. I think you constantly have to be working on this as a business, as a manager, as a leader. Um, you know, I can be honest and say I don't necessarily think I was actually particularly good at some of this area in the early stages, in something that I learned as I grew into I guess more senior roles, and listening to the people that I work with and I manage, and getting that feedback back. And I think what I've learned more than anything around that is you know, trying to understand what makes that person tick, and what they want to get out of it also, not just like, oh yeah, you do a job and you get money and stuff like that, but what does that person want to get out of it? And you know, is it like, have they not figured out sort of their career, that if they're a particularly young person, and is this helping them to kind of develop certain skill sets, and actually then when they're in the business kind of like remember that, hone in on that. And I've always tried to sort of like, for example, give like sort of like levels of responsibility or projects that tap into that motive, the thing that motivates those
Mhm.
individuals. Are they particularly analytical? Can I give them some sort of data-driven job, or are they are they really like, are they set up looking for leadership roles? Can I give them responsibility of managing certain aspects with teams? It's just different stuff like that that taps into their wider interest and future career aspirations. I found to be to help in terms of motivation and incentivization. Obviously, in the world that I live in, sales and things like that, yeah, commissions is a thing. The more you do, the more you can earn. So there's that
Mhm.
monetary incentive that naturally comes, I guess, sometimes with sales. But I would say if you want to keep them ticking, aside from all the obvious things we spoke about before, recognition, stuff like that, yeah, trust them to take over an area of what you need to do day to day that taps into an interest of theirs, whether it be project based or just management of a particular area of what you do, that they can then they feel is contributing to that, again, their growth, and I think that, and then obviously giving them feedback, recognition, if that's the right thing to do, like on how they're doing with that. But I do think that probably gives them that outside of their day-to-day job, it gives them that other sense of sort of like motivation, that this person is trusting me to do this, and I want to, you know, I want to do it to the best way, and I'm learning from it, and I will hopefully gain some level of experience and knowledge as a result of that. And that's really, you know, they find that quite interesting and motivating day to day. Um, and then obviously, like I, you know, mentioned at the very beginning of this call, take them out for dinner, hit them up with loads of wine, and yeah,
Yeah.
more or less they're quite happy. So yeah, that would be I think that, yeah, and I'll be honest, I'm that's really something. This area is something that I feel is you never quite crack it. Each
Mhm.
company is different, people are different. So it's something that I continue to myself kind of like think about, learn about, and yeah, even to this, even right now, yeah, so always just thinking about different things that can help motivate and incentivize the teams within the the possibilities of what you can do as a company.
Yeah, like it's never going to be the same, is it? Like going from
No.
business to business or team to team, it's never going to be the same. Things change with, the climate of
Yeah.
you know, how things are going economically at the moment and things like that as well.
Sure.
Like you obviously
Yeah.
there's different things that people are looking for motivation. If you can't give those big monetary things, maybe it is that opportunity to grow your career so that you can get yourself in a position where you're able to at some stage start earning, more or something
Exactly.
like that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
and it's a
Absolutely.
benefit to the business as well, right? Like, I mean, you're growing your people then to maybe step up into more senior roles internally when those become available. It's almost like you
Yeah.
just working on your resources there as well. So yeah, that's great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so I know that I'm just checking my time, and I know that we are definitely creeping towards the end of
Yeah.
our time. I definitely wanted to get to obviously this topic because I know that this is something that you are incredibly passionate about. We could probably have spent like the hour just probably talking about this topic. I think we pretty much did on Monday when we caught up.
Yeah.
Talked about this and how important it is, cultivating that committed work family. It's not something that happens everywhere. I mean, some of us might have
Mm.
been lucky enough, and I know I certainly was to have worked in a business where, you have that.
Mm.
I know that's something that you obviously try and get everywhere that you are and when you're creating these
Yeah.
teams. So yeah, like you obviously shared some stories with me on Monday around teams that you have worked with in the past that you've built, that you still have these really strong relationships with outside of work. Those team members themselves as well still have those relationships. Like they,
Mm.
they are genuine, real relationships that exist
Mm.
outside of that, workplace, but were formed in that
Yeah.
workplace from, I guess, the way that that was cultivated. Like, do you maybe want to share a bit, I guess, about that, about, your
Yeah.
passion towards that and how you create that and, just all the things, all the things. This is your this is your
Yeah.
main area, right? So let's go.
It's an area, thing, something that I didn't really appreciate until maybe a couple of years ago. Like I really then was like, oh wow, actually this like I didn't even realize that we'd really kind of created this. And I think it stems back to the thing of me being like, if I'm going to commit, yeah, you're in an early phase of a business. I'm going to commit so much time to this business, 8, 9, 10 plus whatever hours a day, in an office with people. Like, I'm going to, if I can influence who's coming into the business, which at that point you definitely can. Yeah, let's see if we can sort of at least try and find like people that come in that common, not necessarily common interest, but just compatibility in terms of personalities and stuff like that. And whilst it was something that was always important for me, but we never sort of like it wasn't a strategy. We didn't build a 10-page document about how to do this. It was just like you speaking to people like the feeling. And I that obviously like that as company one particular company Festica, as we continue to grow and some of those people that were in then were part of the recruitment process of bringing new people in, it was quite remarkable when I look back to see how for such a small business, like everyone, like not getting paid like good, insane amounts of money, how everyone was just pulling together, I've always not, I'm in being in younger in terms of early introduction to sales. I've been in environments where like, competition within the sales team is sort of, encouraged. And I never really liked that because I always felt as a business, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And I found that even by having this kind of approach to bringing people into a business, the responsibility of a manager is to make sure their teams perform and those are some like just the basic levels of responsibility. But I found that actually they were actually doing that within themselves. They were helping each
Mhm.
other. If someone was struggling, they were trying to bring that person up. And like I found that quite remarkable. And then yeah, people like living together, going out and going to the pub three times a week, which I wouldn't recommend on their health, but like there was just kind of like they actually really like each other, right? And it's
That's a young
like,
man's game, that. Like,
yeah, no, right, not anymore. But they actually really genuinely liked each other. And as our business expanded and became international, where we had places in like Amsterdam and France, Paris, the Spain, Netherlands, things like that. Even those people working in the foreign offices and stuff, they were all connecting in the same way. And
yeah.
it really kind of like, yeah, when we were speaking the other day, it's like I really like. I really felt I understood this like what that was maybe something special that there a couple of years ago. But it really hit home last week when one of the people, I think it was the third person that I'd hired, was getting married. Was married and it was in I think his wedding was in Barcelona. And someone sent me a photo. I wanted to attend, but I couldn't make it. But someone sent me a photo, and within there we had like the people that we worked together. And it wasn't just like everyone that was in the same office. We had the girl that was working in Portugal, the guy that was Australian, that was it was,
Mm.
and I was like, wow, like after all these years, like the relationship and that work family was so strong that they've maintained those relationships so much, even though it's incredibly unlikely if you're in different locations. But there's obviously something there that the company um had really sort of put together that meant that everyone was really, really, like very close, and so much so that 10 years on, they're attending a wedding, and I felt incredibly proud basically about that, and and I think that the advantages that you can get from if you as a business decide to look at that and prioritize that, the advantages you do gain from that is kind of what I touched upon a little bit earlier, is that everyone works together and pulls together to help everyone. It's not the responsibility of a few individuals and an executive team to drive. Everyone will really feel that it's their own responsibility as colleagues, as friends, as family to help each other. And that gives you a little bit something extra. It really does help with
Mhm.
retention. It helps with the pressures that company can become under when it comes to, should we start adding perks to the business? And it really does help in terms of the output, which ultimately is what, at the end of the day, regardless whether you like it or not, that's what's the P&L,
Yeah.
the bottom line. And it really does help with that. There is a difference between somebody wanting to work, someone that wants to work for you and with each other, versus somebody that is just getting a paycheck and perhaps really doesn't even like the environment that they're in. I mean, there's those that's a get that I think that is a significant game changer. And I didn't realize it because I look back and I'm like, why did some of these most talented people I've ever worked with, why were they working why were they working so hard on such a base level salary that we could only afford at that time? Like, why were they there for like 3 years? Like when the typical sales employment cycle is around about two. I'm like, this is like, and yeah, and spoke with a few of them, and they were like, you know what, it's because we really liked working there, and we really liked working together, and it's just like, wow. So I mean, forget my to leave, I guess leaving this, like if you can, I don't think there's not one way to possibly get there. This is just my own experience. But if you can
Yeah.
get that, if you get that feeling and that vibe, it's so beneficial, and it will help on all of the other previous topics we talked about, retention, perks. It really does help on those other things, which are tough things to try and to deliver under budget restraints, and ultimately you create an environment where people love coming to work. They may not love it every day, as we all know, but to know that you can go through those tough times in a work environment with people that can help you and support you and care for you, is a big difference. And like I said, you're gonna spend
Yeah.
8, 9 hours a day with somebody. Let's at least kind of make it like fun and enjoyable, and an environment that you kind of like, you want to be in.
100%. Oh my God. Like we spend so much of our life at work, right? It is, whether you're in an office, whether you're remote or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
having it actually be, somewhat fun and not always
Mm.
so, so serious is it's
Yeah.
definitely a huge
I
benefit.
see
But yeah,
through it.
massive. Yeah, like massive credit to you to have those relationships still. They're really important, right? And
Yeah.
it feels only natural that you'd make those relationships after spending so much time with people, but it doesn't always happen that way. So
Doesn't
yeah,
always, yeah.
congratulations, my friend. Well done.
Thank you. That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, we're definitely creeping towards the end. I know that there is a couple of questions in there. So if you're happy for me to, Jonas, I'll jump in.
Yeah.
We'll
Do it.
answer a couple of questions and yeah, I haven't actually popped it open yet to see what they say. So look, it could very well be about the name of your band. It could be, someone
Oh,
hitting you up
dear.
for free tickets to a gig or something like that. But we'll see. Hey, so I've got a question here from Shay. Oh, I feel like I'm like an advice columnist or something asking these
Yeah.
questions like this. What what advice would you give for someone who has big interests and big dreams to start their own business? Maybe 4 big tips you can give.
Uh, so, I mean, I've actually, as an example, I guess, one of the like it was the second person I hired. I have no um uh a bad feeling of saying his name. His name Digby. And he had always he comes from an entrepreneurial family background, and he joined us and was fantastic salesperson. But he did always like have aspirations. I felt certainly from the conversation I had with him on doing his own thing. And I think he learned part of the advantage I think he gained from working with us is he learned a lot about the good things that the business was doing, as well as some of the bad things, because no, let's be honest, like no one is perfect and no company is perfect. And I feel when I've spoken to him recently, and he's now the CEO of his own business, is really successful. And I feel like, the previous brief chats we've had and stuff like that, I think and he said that he did those two things, like he did learn a lot and wonderful things, and then there was some things that, he wasn't really happy with and stuff, which is absolutely normal. And we would talk about, I'll talk when he was employed with us, we'd talk about this all the time. And he took that and applied that. And so I would say like the things are like, if you do have aspirations of them, I think if you do have that relationship with your manager, I think try to gain, I wouldn't say 4 things, I'll just be one big thing. Like try to get yourself in a position where if you are lacking certain skill sets or knowledge or something, the way the company or can kind of help build that up for you. If your manager really cares for your own personal development and feeds into the kind of like incentivization and motivation, they'll want to make that happen for you. Particularly if it means that they don't have to do that particular task themselves or something like that. But I'd say try and gain the knowledge that you feel that you need to gain in order to take that next step within the company that you are working with, and have that conversation with your manager. That's what I would do, and that's clearly the example I've given. It's clearly really worked. That was something that worked for him, and he's gone on. He's, yeah, really successful.
What would you say, I guess, for someone who didn't have that relationship necessarily available to them within their company and their manager to have that conversation? Like if they had to, I guess, look outside of where they're currently working to be able to get those skills to then step out on their own. Do you have any advice there on, where someone could seek outside of their business to look to get that upskilling for themselves or that confidence for themselves to go out and build their own business?
Um, I always, I don't know. I feel personally, and this is only I wouldn't recommend. This is my experience and my view, but I feel like if you don't have that relationship, like I don't know if that's like an environment I would personally want to work in. So I would probably I wouldn't, don't say quit your job or something like that, but I'd like to try. I think you should maybe put yourself or find a role that allows you to be in that environment, because um you can, there's either two things. You can either kind of like just go out and do it raw, and but like if you're working in a place where your wider growth as a professional is understood and appreciated, and the company enables you to do that. It's a that really is a wonderful way to create a mutually beneficial relationship between the employer and the employee. And if you're currently in a position where that's not something that happens, I don't know if I could work in that person in that environment. So
Mhm.
only advice I would give there, based on my experience, and there are probably multiple ways that they can do this while still keep, working in the same place. But in my experience is to look for roles and look for company that in which they care, and not that in which that matters to them, and then you can gain that experience there. That's that. Yeah, I don't know if that's the right thing for everybody, and in this person's circumstance, but
Mhm.
that's just me, and that's what I would advise on anyone.
Awesome. Thank you. Shay, I hope that's really helpful. And I'm just checking my clock and we are 100%
Oh,
at
oh,
time. So if there is anything that we have missed, we will send out a follow-up doc after this. Jonas, honestly, I've really enjoyed this week getting to know you. You're sort of getting prepared for this one. It's been great having you here. Thank you for sharing, all your experience, your wisdom, and just generally being just a great time and great chat. It's been really enjoyable for me. Is there anything, I guess, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to share with anyone before we go? Do you feel like you've covered everything that you wanted to cover, or anything that we've missed?
I mean, this is no, it's wonderfully, wonderful to speak with you. It's just quite nice actually, just to kind of reflect on things. I don't really see this as kind of advice. It's just quite nice to actually just have some level of self-reflection, which is I think
Mhm.
this is done. And so yeah, no, thank you for the time, and I hope if anyone gets a tiny, even if it's just a little bit of entertainment, that I feel like quite happy about that. But if there's one or two things that's made people think about something a little bit differently. That's wonderful for me. But again, so everything I've talked about is my own experience. It's not the way, and it's certainly not work won't the way for everybody at all. So, but if it just gets people like even if it's just to have a coffee break for an hour and they're happy with that, then
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Excellent. Well, everyone who joined us, I hope you do have a lovely weekend. I do hope that England get the win for everyone's sake, including my own. A survey will pop up automatically after this webinar ends. Please do participate, even if it is just to, inflate our egos a little bit and tell us, whether we were amazing, maybe not so much. Tell us, if there's things we could do better, all that in between. Like I said earlier, we will be sending out the recording and any additional resources as well. So keep an eye out for that. And please also keep an eye out for any future webinars that you might be interested as well. The Employment Hero is putting on or hosting. They're coming through thick and fast all the time. So yeah, please do keep an eye out. And again, thank you, Yonas. And look, I look forward to our chats in the future. And yeah, enjoy the weekend, everyone.
Thanks, Claire. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so
Bye bye.
much. Bye.